Can I recreate the sound of 1970s tape without actually using tape? Today I'm attempting to record a song to sound like the 1970s, but instead of using my reel-to-reel tape machine, I have to do everything in the box. And at the end of this video, we're going to compare the raw version of this mix to the 1970s style version, just to see how much the production alone can transform the sound. For this, I am going for that early 1970s hi-fi tape sound. Now, this is one of my favorite eras to recreate because even though it's hi-fi, there is so much character that's just baked into that sound because of those limitations back then. Now, obviously the challenge is I can't use any real analog tape, which means I have to record everything digitally and then mix it with plugins. So things like subtle compression, saturation, the way that tape just glues everything together, I have to recreate all of that in the box. And the goal for this challenge is to see, do we actually need tape to achieve that sound? All right, so I've got the acoustic here hooked up. Now the first thing you want to do is pick out sort of the angle or the mic position that you're going to be using. If you listen, you can tell there's a lot of difference just from subtle changes. The way that you position the mic is a really big part of the sound. Now, in order to get this to sound like tape, we've got to think about the way that tape is actually affecting the sound. So tape is going to be adding subtle saturation, compression, and it's also going to roll off a lot of that top end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the processing for this, and then we'll take a listen to the sound. Okay, so you can tell it's a little bit warmer, and you can probably hear if I play hard, I'm getting a lot of the breakup. For this part, I'm gonna try to play a little bit softer. I want more of just a soft strumming part. But the processing that I do have, I've got the tape mellify adding a little bit of the flutter that you're hearing and the saturation. Then we've got some EQ, and I'm running all of that into the UAD Oxide plugin for some of that natural tape compression. Okay, so for the finger picking part, I've moved the mic a little bit closer. I'm still pointing at the same spot, and I'm processing it in the same way, but the EQ is just a little bit different. I've got this actually pushed a little bit off center towards the left, and we're getting a little bit more crunch. So the part's gonna sound something like this. For the drums in this mix, I want them to act more as a percussive element that sit back in the mix and just kind of drive the tune. So I'm actually going to be using an old drum loop that I recorded, and then we're going to pan it slightly off center and then balance it with a conga part. Now the key here is we don't want a lot of low end, because if we have too much low end, especially if we pan it off to the side, it's going to start to sound lopsided. We also don't want a lot of top end, but instead of using a low pass filter, I'm actually just going to use a high shelf, pull that down just a little bit to simulate some of that natural roll off that you would get when recording the tape. As far as the plugins that I'm using, I'm actually going to use a Trident preamp. That's going to be for my EQ, but I can also drive it to get just a little bit of breakup. And then I'm going to be running that into an Oxide tape plugin to give it some of that natural tape saturation. All right, so I've got my Fender P here set up, and the processing for this track is absolutely minimal. So my tip when it comes to really EQing anything, in this case we're doing the bass, is to make sure you set the level of your mix, get everything balanced with the faders. Once everything is balanced, then you can listen to it in context of the mix and make your EQ adjustments. Mentally take note of what you don't like, and then you can go in and make those subtle adjustments. For this mix, I've just got a little bit of compression, and I'm actually just dipping just a small, I think like 1 dB out of the low mids. That's all this thing needed, and it sounds great. So it feels wrong to have a 70s style mix without adding the 12 string. So I've got that set up here. I'm gonna use this, and I'm gonna kind of use it to build into this section with a little line. And I'm actually going to do a lot of like these little fast picking between the doubles here on the strings. just so it sounds kind of interesting, maybe like a string part. For the production here, it's very, very minimal. I'm really just rolling off the low end. These guitars are pretty bright, so I've got just a hair taken off of the top end, and then that's getting bussed together with the rest of the guitars. So I'm gonna tune this up and then we're gonna go ahead and record it. Okay, so for the piano, I'm using an old Contact VST that I have. I actually don't even remember where I got this, but this is sort of the sound that I'm using. We're gonna saturate it a bit. I'm gonna sum that to mono, or make it mono. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the processing on and let you guys hear the difference. So let's go ahead and record it. So before we compare the raw version of this track to the 1970s style mix, I want to share a few thoughts that I had while doing this experiment. Now, the reason I wanted to make this video is because a lot of you guys have been asking if we could try and recreate the sound of tape 100% digitally. This experiment for me was pretty fun because it took me back to the days before I owned any reel-to-reels, where I would just constantly tweak and throw plugins on a track until something just kind of sounded right. What's interesting is, coming back to it, I didn't really find myself processing anything that much, which I think goes to show just how important it is to be very intentional with each and every decision. Now, I think you can get surprisingly close to 70s character all in the box without actually needing any sort of expensive gear, but there's still something very special about the way that tape changes the workflow that I really like. So with that in mind, let's compare these two mixes and see just how much the production alone can actually transform the sound. So let me know down below in the comments what you guys thought of this experiment. Did it sound like it was recorded 100% digitally, or did it resemble that 1970s tape sound? I think this would be a fun series to kind of go through different eras or genres of music and try to recreate them. So if you guys have any recommendations, let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend you check out the video where I tried recording a song like it was 1966 and I only used 4 tracks. As always, I appreciate everyone for watching, and I will see you on the next one.